Welcome into the Verts podcast. I'm Tyler Graves alongside Carter Bales. This is our third time doing this.
Third time, week 6, right? We're in week 6, I believe. We took a week hiatus because Tennessee was on a bye, but we're back. Got LSU coming up this Saturday, noon kickoff.
Yeah, big game as the Vols are now ranked 8th in the country. LSU is ranked 25th, but first segment is our Florida recap. Since we didn't do a show last week, we're going to talk about the Florida game now. Tennessee wins 38-33 over the Gators in Knoxville. Hendon Hooker was 22 of 28 for 349 yards and 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. He also led the team in rushing for Tennessee. He had 111 rushing yards. For Florida, Anthony Richardson had 453 passing yards, which is a lot. And he finally threw not only one, but he threw 2 passing touchdowns against Tennessee, but he also had an interception. Anthony Richardson also led Florida in rushing, so both quarterbacks led their respective teams in rushing, Carter.
Yeah, they really took the game into their own hands. Richardson had a career night against Tennessee. Definitely the best game of his career so far, and possibly the best game of his entire career, because I don't know if he'll be able to do what he did against us against another SEC school.
Well, I think he has the potential to, just because he has so much raw talent. You can tell he's got arm talent, and he's really fast.
Yeah.
So
and Tennessee's lucky because he ended up missing a few passes in that game.
Yeah, that's why I think one day he could be really good, but it's kind of like Joe Milton last year. He's got some accuracy issues.
Yeah. And
everyone can see the talent. He's just gotta learn how to control it.
He's got a big frame. Really good pocket presence, even though he struggles with accuracy. If he could get the accuracy down, he could be a Heisman contender. Like everyone was saying week 1, whenever he didn't have a passing touchdown, if he can get the accuracy issues fixed, definitely Heisman candidate.
58 first downs between the two teams.
There was no defense played. No defense played. Especially Tennessee secondary really struggled.
And then you look at fourth down. Fourth down, Tennessee was 0 for 2 on fourth down. Florida was 5 of 6, including I think 2 of those were on Florida's side of the field.
On the conversions? 2 fourth down conversions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it was ridiculous. Billy Napier was very aggressive. Don't really agree with the 2-point conversion calls.
No,
You got bashed on Twitter a little bit for that. But.
Yeah, and I said, hey, if Florida fans are content with defending the guy who cost them a shot at the game, then so be it.
Yeah,
I'll let them defend Napier all they want, but that was stupid. I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to make it 38-29, because then if you have a situation where, because at that point you're down 9 instead of down 10.
Yeah.
So if you do score another touchdown, you just kick the extra point, and then a field goal would win you the game.
Instead of tying it going to overtime.
Well,
Tennessee's already proven this year that they can win an overtime game.
I just think that's really, really risky for Napier to do, and this is my opinion. If it did get to that point, this would be my logic. If Tennessee gave up 17 unanswered points in the fourth quarter,
You've got all momentum going into overtime.
I don't think there is any way that Tennessee would have won that game.
No. But we did, and this was something I was going to say. This Tennessee team has won 2 close games going into the fourth quarter. Well, Florida came back, but still 2 close games won this year where previous Tennessee teams would have ended up giving up the lead and would have lost, I think. So really nice to see Josh Heupel's teams finish. That's for sure.
And Tennessee in this game, I wouldn't say they started fast because it was only 3-0 at the end of the first quarter, but they did score first again. And Tennessee was up at halftime 17-14. So, and Florida won the fourth quarter, but at that point, it was just too much to make up, and Tennessee held on. I wanted to mention the fourth quarter, I guess, situational play calling. I didn't like the play call that we had on is either 4th and 2 or 4th and 3. We ran a 1-yard route to Princeton Fant.
Oh, yeah, that 1-yard out route.
Yeah, not a big fan
gotta
of
get
that.
to the sticks there, at least.
But I will say, we had a guy wide open past the sticks, and Hendon didn't throw it. So, but yeah, I didn't like that one. That was pretty much my only complaint the whole game. Besides, there was one other big complaint I had. Secondary. Every week.
Well, this week was a little extra. It was bad. It was.
That one touch, I think it was the first touchdown Florida had.
Oh, yeah, the tackling.
Mm.
Who was it? Had a chance to tackle him like 5 or 2 or 3 different times.
We had about 4 guys that just...
Well, it was the same guy like twice, 2 or 3 times.
I don't even remember, but it was awful. It was
tackling galore.
Zipper is a big dude, but
he's not that big.
He's I mean that was pathetic tackling by Tennessee.
Yeah, that's one of those where in the film room the Monday after
you just hide.
Yeah, you put your head down and hope you don't get noticed.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with SEC talk. We're going to do some previews of this week's games, and we're also going to talk about last week. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is time for our SEC talk segment. We're going to start off with last week's games. And then we'll just talk about those, and then we'll move on to this week's games, and we'll do our picks for those. So the first game we're going to talk about was a game that you and I actually watched at Walk-Ons over in West Knoxville. Georgia barely hangs on. They survive as they defeat Missouri 26-22. Georgia was a 32-point favorite going into that game. Yeah,
and Missouri led the entire game. Missouri was up, 17-6 or 17-3 at halftime?
I'll look right here. It was 16-6 at halftime.
Oh, 16-6, that's right. So, yeah, that was a bad game for Georgia, really bad. Defensively, they couldn't really stop anything. Cut them like butter. Kind of looked like our defense against Florida. And then offensively, Stetson Bennett just looked bad. He had a very bad game. He's had 2 back-to-back very bad games. So, and then Missouri, you got to hand it to him, picked to be, at least between us, the worst team in the SEC this year.
Mm-hmm.
And they lose to Georgia by 4, excuse me. So that's crazy. It's still hard to think about.
Yeah, this game makes me question my my Vanderbilt over Missouri pick for later in the year.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
This is what I don't quite know yet. So, is this Missouri is better than we thought, or is this Georgia is worse than we thought? Because now I'll say Georgia since the Kent State game, Georgia has looked like a completely different team, but not for the better. Kent State and Missouri both have given Georgia issues, which is very weird to me because neither one of those teams are very good, which is why you'll see later I've dropped Georgia to 3 in my poll.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like you said, this game is not an outlier. Because Kent State really did whatever they wanted to against Georgia, too.
And it's such it's not like Georgia was only winning like by 20 or.
They blew out.
I mean, they destroyed Oregon.
Yeah.
They destroyed South Carolina, and then ever since then, it's like
It's almost
what am I
like they've
watching?
been overlooking every team that they've played.
And the thing that I don't understand is like you said, it's like they're overlooking these teams, but they play Auburn this week. Why in the world would you overlook Missouri for Auburn? They're the same team,
Unless they're overlooking like weeks in advance,
which is
not a good
happening.
idea. No,
I don't think that's happening.
It's not happening at all. So I don't think they're clicking.
Yeah, and I think here's what I really think that the issue has been. If you look at their defense, they gave up 22 to Missouri and 22 to Kent State. The first 3 games, they gave up a combined 10 points.
Yeah, and that's what everybody was talking about.
So they've given up 44 in the past 2 weeks to not very good teams, whereas the first 3 weeks of the season, they gave up 10 over those first 3 games. So it's the defensive side of the ball that is hurting Georgia. And I think you're finally starting to see the effect of losing all those guys to the draft.
Yeah, because if you give Georgia a good defense where the offense does not have to rely on being good and keeping them in games, Georgia's going to be the best team in the country. But that defense doesn't look comfortable together. They're not molded like that last year's national championship team. And like you said, you're really starting to see the effects of losing that many guys in the draft.
Yeah. Let's talk about another SEC East team real quick. South Carolina. They played South Carolina State.
Yeah, beat them 50-10, but that's not really what we're looking at in this game. Spencer Rattler, who was a Heisman favorite coming into the season, threw 2 interceptions against an FCS school.
Yeah, and his touchdown to interception ratio is now 4-7 on the year,
That's
which
terrible.
is awful.
It's terrible. I mean, the only competition that they've truly played is Georgia.
Yeah, that's really the only good team that South Carolina has played to this point. I would consider, Arkansas's they're decent. Well, I'll say this: Georgia is a great team. Arkansas is I would say, good team, borderline good team.
No, and they're showing that they're not an elite team.
Yes, they're not elite and they are not great. But Arkansas is a good team. Georgia's elite. So
at least we thought they were.
I think
they still might be.
Yeah.
But this upcoming game they've got this week will be telltale as to whether or not they are.
Mm-hmm. Kentucky, Ole Miss. Ole Miss wins 22-19. I watched most of this game. Will Levis honestly cost Kentucky the game.
Yeah, no, he struggled. 18 for 24, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air. That's not bad, but then you look at the QBR, 47.7.
Well, what that doesn't show is his 2
fumbles.
Well, the fumble. Actually, the intentional grounding wasn't a fumble. It was a
safety.
The safety, excuse me, was an intentional grounding. It wasn't a fumble. So that cost them 2 points right there. And then they're driving down with like a minute left, and they got down in the red zone, and then Levis gets strip sacked. Ole Miss recovers. That's the ball game. So and Kentucky also had a crucial missed extra point.
Yes, they did actually, because they just kept bringing it up on the broadcast how Kentucky ended up losing their game against Ole Miss, I think last year or 2 years ago or something like that, because of a missed field goal. And then sure enough, they score their first touchdown. Field goal kicker comes out, misses the field goal. Like wide right, I think. So it was commentators curse.
Well, they also talked about how Will Levis is like the second coming of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, but obviously that's not the case.
And I've been saying this since the beginning. Will Levis is a good quarterback. He is. He is a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's not what everybody puts him up to be. And I've got to talk about this a little bit. So my tweet or my comment on a post made by SEC Network was blocked me and you discussed this, actually. You brought it up to me. Because I compared Hendon Hooker's stats to Will Levis's stats on the season before this Ole Miss game, and they had almost the same exact statistics. In fact, Will Levis had 2 more passing touchdowns and 4 more interceptions and a 60.3 QBR with 100 less passing yards than Hendon Hooker. And I was like, stop hyping him up to be more than he actually is, which is a mediocre quarterback and with a good team around him, other than the offensive line.
Yeah, the Kentucky's offensive line this year, normally we're used to them having a really good
really
offensive
big
line.
offensive linemen that they run behind
they
all
can
the time.
run the ball, but this year, they're not good.
Tennessee's front seven is going to tear them up this year.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's if we continue to do what we've been doing.
Alabama, Arkansas. So this was quite the game. You might not know that if you just read the final score. Final score was 49-26. But Alabama really, so they jumped out to a 28-0 lead. They led 28-7 at halftime, and then Arkansas came roaring back. Alabama actually had a punt. They had a terrible snap on a punt. Ball rolls down inside the Arkansas 10-yard line. Arkansas recovers. They score, I think, 2 plays later. And it was 28-23, 3rd and 12. Milroe, who came in for Bryce Young, we'll talk about that in a second. Milroe just takes off, looks like he's running a 3.6, and goes, I think, 60 or 70 yards to the house.
Yeah, very long run, ended up really sealing the game, and from then on it was Alabama football like we were used to. Well, not necessarily like we were used to, at least within the past few years, because Milroe really did not look great throwing the ball. He's a very rough on the edges passer, but he's got the athleticism. He's fast. He runs a lot better than most of the Alabama quarterbacks we've seen.
Yeah, certainly it's obvious Bryce Young is better.
Yeah.
I would say Milroe's a better runner just from watching him. I don't think he's nearly on the same level passing as Bryce Young is.
Bryce Young is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the country.
Yes, he's probably top 2 or top 3, which is why he's the favorite to win the Heisman. And I don't know how severe his injury is. They've said I think it's a AC joint.
Yeah, AC joint, which the only way to heal an AC joint injury is rest. So he probably won't be active against whoever they play this week.
Texas A&M?
Yeah. He probably won't be active. At least I don't expect him to be active this week. But I don't know. We'll see. He might be out for 2 weeks, and if he's out for 2 weeks, that's big news whenever the Tide roll into Knoxville.
Yep. That would. I know Tennessee has a hard time defending scrambling quarterbacks, but I would much rather go up against Milroe than I would Bryce Young.
Yeah, especially because you take away the passing aspect with Milroe.
Yeah.
So you're just expecting him to run the entire time.
Mm-hmm. Our next game we're going to talk about is Texas A&M and Mississippi State. Mississippi State clobbers A&M.
Yeah, that was
42-24.
That was really unexpected. Jimbo Fisher is showing that he probably shouldn't call plays next year. We've actually got a clip to play.
This is what Aggie fans listen to.
She would have done the same thing. Let's have ourselves a fine Texas Aggie yell practice.
I wish y'all could see the video.
Jingle Aggies, hey! Thanks. Pumping
Carter, is that not the most cringy thing you've ever
it's
seen?
terrible. It's terrible. They did the same thing. What game was it? The App State game.
No, this is a tradition.
They do it. I mean, they do it every week.
It's a tradition. So these are like the yell leaders.
Yeah, it's come back to beat them twice now. It's come back to bite them.
I don't know how long they've been doing this. They've been doing this for like years. This is like a thing. This is a tradition.
Well,
down there.
I mean, this year it's come back to bite them twice.
Let me read some of the comments here. Somebody, please explain the leg thing. Cringiest thing in college football. I hope the internet breaks this stupid and awful tradition. Do we need to go save Texas again? I've never seen something as disturbing and embarrassing. This is just so weird. This is so cringy and goofy.
They're all bad.
2 minutes of my life I'm never getting back.
No one really enjoys it. At least not on our
A&M
side.
fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, A&M, those yell leaders are having a rough season, as they were picked by everyone to be a playoff contender.
Second in the West.
Yeah, second in the West, and they have not lived up to the hype. But I want to talk about Mississippi State, honestly.
The Pirates got things going. The Jolly Roger's up.
Yeah, I mean, Mississippi State, they lost to LSU a couple weeks ago, but
I think
this is how Mike Leach teams are. They will lose games that they have no business losing, and they will win games that they have no business winning. That's just how it works.
That's how his air raid offense works.
Because some teams can defend it, some teams can't. Doesn't really matter how talented you are. You have to have the personnel, and you have to have the matchups to match up against it.
Tennessee would struggle against Mississippi State.
I think so. I think that would certainly be a high-scoring game.
Yeah. Do I think we lose that game? Not necessarily, because I think our offense is still a lot more explosive than Mississippi State's. But yeah, like you said, though, you want to definitely take the over in that game.
Let's talk about LSU. So they played Auburn.
Yeah, we watched that game too.
Yep.
Over at Walk-Ons.
21-17 was the final, but Auburn was up 17-0 in the first half.
It looked like neither team wanted to win that game.
That's what it looked like.
And you kept saying that.
Yeah.
It was like there's no way either team wants to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, preferably both teams would lose, but obviously that can't happen. No, Jaden, right? Jaden Daniels looked bad. He did not have a good game through the air. 8 for 20 for 80 yards.
And he got injured.
And then the backup came in. I'm not even going to try and say his last name. Nussmeier. Yeah, that looks right. He didn't look like he knew what he was doing either. So, quarterback room definitely struggled against Auburn, but they were able to pull it out.
Yeah, let's think about everything that happened in the fourth quarter.
We saw the last 5 minutes of the game.
We saw a muffed punt. We saw I think we saw 2 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
One was a fumble. I think one was an interception.
No, it was fumble, interception.
That's right.
Yep.
And yeah, it was just
all within the last 4 minutes of the game.
Yeah, it was very hard to watch. And Auburn, I know they play Georgia this coming Saturday, but just looking at their schedule for later in the year, I would be surprised if Auburn reaches bowl eligibility at this point. Their layup game is Western Kentucky. That's their easiest game from here on, and Western Kentucky is no slouch.
No, they're not. I mean, they've got Georgia this week, and then they've got Ole Miss the week after that. Then they play Arkansas, and then Mississippi State. So
they could lose.
And then, of course, they always finish the year with Alabama.
They honestly might only be favored in one game the rest of the way. I would say they will only be favored by one game the rest of the way.
Yeah, they'll be favored against Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that'll be it.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Harson's tenure at Auburn is going to come to an end.
Yeah.
If not, then there's a serious issue in the front office over there.
All right, moving on to this week's SEC games. We'll save Tennessee-LSU for later, obviously. But noon, SEC Network, Arkansas will travel to Starkville to play Mississippi State. So this is Mississippi State's second home game in a row against an SEC West opponent. Mississippi State is now favored by 8 points.
Yep.
This line has jumped way up. Mississippi State was favored by 3.5. Now it's up to 8, which is insane.
It's a really high spread, in
Yeah.
my opinion, because even though KJ Jefferson and Arkansas have struggled as of late, they're still a good football program. And Mississippi State is no slouch either. So it should be a good game to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how to feel about this game because, like I said, I don't know which Mississippi State's going to show up. I never do.
Nope.
So we'll go ahead and do our picks for this. I'm going to take Mississippi State. I'm going to bet that they show up. I'll pick Arkansas to cover. I'll pick Arkansas +8, but straight up, which is what matters, I'm going to go with the Bulldogs.
I'm going to go against you here, Tyler. I think Arkansas is going to end up winning this game. I feel like the Mississippi State offense is not going to show up because they've showed up for 2 games in a row, and they're not
That's a good
likely to
point.
show up for 3.
Yeah, that's a
So I'm going
a
to
really
pick
good point.
Arkansas to win. Obviously, Arkansas +8.
All right. Next game, Missouri at Florida. Florida's favored by 11 points. Obviously, Missouri is coming off that close game with Georgia. I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of surprised after last week that the spread is this big. I thought it would go down since the Georgia game.
Yeah, I expected single digits here for sure. I still expected Florida to obviously be the favorite. 'Cause
Yes.
You're in the swamp, and Florida, on paper, is a better football team.
And I'm going to pick Florida to win. I will not pick them to cover.
I'm going to agree with you there. Florida's going to win this game, but Missouri's going to make it tight.
All right, let's go to Auburn and Georgia, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Auburn 3-2, Georgia 5-0. Georgia is favored by 30 points at home. This is the 3:30 game on CBS, but it's not the prime time or the best game because they've got another game at 8 o'clock, which is the one that Danielson and Brad Nessler will be calling, not this one.
I feel bad for whoever watches that game.
Georgia, obviously, I'm going to pick them to win.
Yep.
To cover, I don't know, because will this be the week that they finally wake up and they play like week 1 through 3 Georgia, or will they still play like Kent State and Missouri Georgia? I don't know. I'm gonna pick Auburn +30 just because I think it's safer. I think it's the safer pick, but I'm gonna obviously pick Georgia to win the game outright.
Yeah, Georgia's going to win this game. I don't think there's really any doubt in that. Of course, we said the same exact thing off air because we didn't take picks last week. But
We said the same thing about Missouri.
Missouri. But no, I'm going to pick Georgia to win this game, and it's actually one of my locks of the week. Auburn is going to be +30 here. So I'm going to do Georgia to win, Auburn +30.
All right, SEC East matchup here. The battle. Well, I wouldn't say it's the battle for third. We don't know now because, and to be honest, I don't think South Carolina is in the battle for third. I think they're more in the battle for sixth in the East. It's South Carolina and Kentucky. So Kentucky's ranked 13th. They're at home. They're favored by 10.5 points. I'm going Kentucky to win. South Carolina +10.5 though.
Neither defense really is good here. South Carolina doesn't really have a good defense. Kentucky's defense really struggled against Ole Miss. Of course, Ole Miss is a fast-paced offense. I think they're third in the country I saw on the broadcast in fast-paced offense, snaps per minute. But no, I'm going to take Kentucky to win this game. Kentucky's going to end up having a comeback game here, play really well, and I'm going to pick Kentucky to cover the spread.
I don't think it'll be high scoring. I don't think the defenses are that bad.
No, I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game.
I actually think the defenses are. Well, I think Kentucky's defense is pretty good. I don't think Carolina's defense is, but I do think Kentucky's defense is pretty good.
Kentucky's defense is good enough to stop Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler, I think Helen Keller could perform better than Spencer Rattler right now. He can't read a defense to save his life.
All right, Ole Miss, Vandy. This is at Vanderbilt. Ole Miss is favored by 18 points. Ole Miss is now a top 10 team.
They are.
According to the AP.
Number
They're
9.
ranked 9th. So,
I'll start this one.
Can Vandy pull off the upset?
Nope. Ole Miss wins, Ole Miss covers. I don't care that it's at Vanderbilt. Ole Miss wins, Ole Miss covers.
I'm going to take Ole Miss as well. I will take Ole Miss to cover. Next game, Texas A&M, and our last game for the SEC this week is Texas A&M at Alabama. A&M obviously won this game last year. A&M was unranked when they beat Alabama last year. They are unranked again. But the main difference, the big difference, Carter, in this game is it is in Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
I'm going to take Alabama to win, and I will take Alabama to cover, as I think they will win and cover.
I'm going to take Alabama to cover, Alabama to win this game, but without Bryce Young in the lineup, because like I said, I really don't think he's going to win this game. Be in this game. I'm going to take A&M plus 24.
All right, and that's a thing that really impacts I don't think it impacts the result of this game, but it does impact.
It impacts the money line.
It impacts the offense.
Yeah.
Alabama's offense, their ability to move the ball. Because if Bryce Young's not in there, it goes from pass heavy to run heavy. They'll rely on
extremely
Gibbs,
run heavy,
and they'll run Milroe a lot. So with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time to do our news around college football segment. We'll also do some very brief game recaps in this segment. Obviously, coaching news, Paul Chryst and Jeff Collins have both been let go. Paul Chryst was at Wisconsin. He had a 67-26 record while he was there. Jeff Collins was at Georgia Tech. He got fired after going 10-28 as Georgia Tech's head coach.
Yeah, that one, Jeff Collins makes a lot of sense.
He should have been fired last year.
Yeah, he's been bad, like really bad, really since he's been there. Hasn't been able to break on through, and he's not going to break on through because he was fired. Paul Chryst, however, makes no sense to me. I get he started slow, but this firing really does not make sense to me at all.
Well, people were comparing on Twitter. People were comparing this firing, to Philip Fulmer. I don't agree with that at all because, first of all, Fulmer was at UT for way, way, way longer than Paul Chryst was at Wisconsin. And second, Paul Chryst didn't have nearly the success that Philip Fulmer had at Tennessee. See, there's two sides here, and I understand both of them. And I think I disagree with you. I lean more towards the side of I understand why they fired him. Because if you look at how Wisconsin has been, especially the past 3 years offensively, this year, 2021 and 2020, they have been horrendous on offense. I mean, absolutely atrocious.
I mean, they were still winning games though. They went 9-4.
Well, but so they run about 5 years ago. Obviously, college football changed offensively.
Yeah.
Nick Saban started to run the spread. They got out of under center. Pretty much every team then decided, hey, if the greatest coach of all time is doing this, why don't we do it? So everyone started to spread receivers out. They quit running single back. They quit running I formation. Most teams. I mean, there's still a couple teams like Army and Navy. They're always going to run the option.
Even Kentucky runs more of a NFL offense because they go a lot under center. They only go, I think, shotgun. It's either 40 or 60% of the time.
And especially after 2019, after everybody saw the LSU 2019 offense with Joe Burrow, and they had Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
that offense
Thaddeus
was
Moss. After everyone saw that, the days of just getting in the I formation and getting 3 and 4 and 5 yards a carry and running it 75% of the time, those days were pretty much over. But Wisconsin was one of the few teams that still did that. So they would just ground and pound you to death. Played Big Ten football of like 2010.
Yeah, and that kind of offense will average you around 8 to 9 wins a season, but you're never going to take that next step.
Correct. You're never going to be elite. And I think that's what the higher-ups at Wisconsin realized is that, listen, he's not going to change. He didn't change. He's not changed since he's got here. He's run the same offense. And, Graham Mertz, the quarterback development, has not been there. So I think they just looked at that and they said, it's time to move on. So, and then Jeff Collins, like I said, he should have been fired last year. He's
been terrible since he's been there.
Yeah, not much to say about him. Last week, I know you wanted to mention this. TCU played Oklahoma, and they boat raced Oklahoma.
Yeah, very surprising. Very surprising.
TCU looked like the better team.
Yeah.
By far.
Which I get Oklahoma had a lot of transfers last year, but they're still a good football team. At least I thought they were. They're still a good football team. TCU just, like you said, they looked like the better team on every facet of the game. They dominated the entire game. I don't think it was ever close.
No, because
it looked like TCU was in control the entire time.
TCU scored, I think, 20 or 27 points in the first quarter. So this game was never close, and it took forever. I mean, this game took forever to finish. Between both offenses scoring a lot, and I think they had somebody had to get stretchered out at some point. You also had a weird targeting while Dylan Gabriel slid, and that took a while to sort out, and they ended up throwing that guy out, the TCU defender. They ended up throwing that guy out. But yeah, TCU, I was very impressed by them in this game.
Yeah, and they've got Kansas this week, who is also in the top 25 now. Good for Kansas.
That's where game day's going.
Yep, as they should. I know a lot of Kansas fans were upset that they didn't go whenever they came to the Florida game, but they got their wish, as this is a much better opponent that they're playing, TCU, Kansas.
And I think there's one other game that we need to talk about real quick. It was a big game. Clemson and NC State. A lot of people believe that this was the battle for the division as Clemson beats NC State 30-20 at home. Clemson in this game really surprised me on the offense because ever since last year, they had those struggles last year offensively. They've not looked good on that side of the ball, but they really did look pretty good in this game.
Yeah, since Trevor Lawrence has been gone, they've really struggled offensively, really because they have their quarterback, but he's not Trevor Lawrence. DJ.
Uiagalelei.
Yep. Something like that. It's close enough, right? He struggled. He struggled passing the ball. The running ability has really been there the entire time, but he struggled passing. But last weekend he actually came alive throwing the ball, 21 for 30 with 209 yards. That's a 7-yard average and an 82.5 QBR. So he had a really good game. Hopefully he can keep it going because I've never really hated Clemson. I like whenever Clemson's successful.
He was also their leading rusher in that game.
14 carries for 73 yards.
But Clemson, their concern, my concern for them has been their offense because they have talent. They could easily make the playoff this year, especially playing in the ACC. Because I think they can easily go 12-1 playing in the ACC. Yeah. And I certainly think that Clemson has probably the best defense in the ACC because that's not a conference where they play a whole lot of defense. So
no, and Clemson has really thrived on playing defense these past few years.
Yeah.
So they've really built up that side of the ball, and it's not hard to be the best defense in the ACC, and they've done that relatively easily.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and we will be back with some top 25 rankings. We'll give you our top 15 rankings, and we'll also go over our picks for the week and then our locks of the week segment. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It is now time to read off the AP Top 25 for this week. Let's see here. Top 10 is number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Michigan. Number 5, Clemson. Number 6, USC. Number 7, Oklahoma State. Number 8, Tennessee. Number 9, Ole Miss, and number 10, Penn State.
And then at 11, we've got Utah, and then Oregon, and then Kentucky drops all the way to 13 after their loss. NC State to 14 after their loss. Wake Forest at 15, BYU 16, TCU up to 17 from not being ranked. UCLA to 18 from not being ranked. Kansas finally in the top 25 at 19. We'll see if that stays as they play TCU later this week. Kansas State at 20, Washington at 21, Syracuse finally in the top 25 once again at 22, Mississippi State into the top 25 at 23, well-deserved, Cincinnati at 24, and then LSU at 25.
Yep, and now we're going to give our top 15 again. I do this based on who I think would beat who on a neutral field if they played 10 times.
And then I go off
who would win 6, 7, 8 times.
Yeah, and then I go off of what I saw in the previous week. So,
and I use previous results. I mean, it's not like
but I focus predominantly on that.
Yeah,
you focus on matchup against matchup,
and more future based.
Yeah,
more of a future model. I can go first. So I've got Alabama as my number 1 team. I moved Georgia down to 3. So Ohio State is now ranked 2 in my poll. I still have Michigan at 4, Oklahoma State at 5, Clemson 6. I've got Tennessee ranked 7th now. Southern Cal, I've got Southern Cal right behind Tennessee at 8, Ole Miss at 9, NC State at 10. That's my top 10. I did not drop NC State out of my top 10 because I thought, they went on the road and they played Clemson pretty tough. And I know we didn't talk about this, but there were some questionable calls in that game.
Yes.
I went back and watched. But yeah, I still think NC State's a top 10 team, even after losing to Clemson. 11th, Penn State. I've got Utah 12, BYU 13, Baylor 14, and then, Kentucky at 15.
All right, so my top four are the same as yours. Bama, Ohio State, Georgia drops to 3 after that very bad game against Missouri. Michigan 4. I've still got Clemson at 5. Oklahoma State will be at 6. USC falls behind them. Tennessee stays at 8 in mine. Then I've got Penn State and then Ole Miss at 10 because they played Kentucky, who I thought has kind of been overrated the entire season. At 11, I've got Oregon. Utah 12. NC State drops to 13 in mine. Kentucky at 14 as they lost to Ole Miss, so they kind of flip spots, but not really. And then TCU at 15 because TCU, the Horned Frogs, have looked really good this year.
So you've got, so I have Baylor in my top 15, and they're not even ranked in the AP poll. And then you have Oregon in your top 15. I don't have them in my top 15. I do have them at 18 though. So they are in my top 25. Now let's go to our pick segment. This week's picks. We've got, let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exactly 10 games to pick this week.
Yeah, we got a good week of college football.
And by the way, if you want to be our pick sponsor, please email us or message us. Leave a comment on the video. Twitter DM us. Add us on Twitter.
Yep. I guess we should
DM us on Instagram. We don't care where you message us.
We should say we're moving our podcast to YouTube.
We think we're moving it to YouTube. We're not sure where we're going to post this yet, but I guess by the time we upload this, they will know because they'll be listening wherever it's on, whatever it's on. So, all right, let's go. First game. This is a Big Ten matchup. Purdue at Maryland. Purdue is coming off a big win last week, and Maryland. I think Maryland's coming off a big win too. Let me check.
Maryland is 4-1 on the year. They beat Michigan State 27-13.
Yeah, that's right. So
Michigan State's terrible.
Yes, and I'm sure that they are just loving paying Mel Tucker $9 million right now to go probably 6-6 this year.
Yeah, me and you discussed this. Best job in the country.
Best job in the country. Heck, Michigan State's a better job than Kentucky because Mark Stoops doesn't get paid $9 million a year.
To lose.
Mel Tucker gets paid $9 million a year. They decided to pay him $95 million for 10 years after he went, I think, 9-3 with Kenneth Walker. You talk about an athletic department with some questionable leadership. My goodness. This Purdue-Maryland game, I'm going to go with Purdue. Maryland is favored, by the way. Maryland's favored by 3 points, but I'm going to go with Purdue on the road.
So you've got Purdue +3. I'm going to go Purdue coming off of a big win against the Minnesota team, which I personally think is a bigger win than Michigan State. They've got a lot more momentum going into it, so we're going to go Purdue.
All right, so we agree there. TCU at Kansas. Kansas is a 7-point underdog at home. TCU is ranked 17th in the AP. Kansas is 19th.
It's just so weird hearing Kansas ranked in the same sentence.
Lance Leopold's doing a good job.
He is. He's doing a really good job over there. I'll start this one. I'm going to take TCU to win this game. However, I believe that Kansas is going to cover. So it'll be Kansas +7.
I'm really torn on this game. I could see TCU winning this game. I could see Kansas winning this game. I think it's a coin flip, honestly. If this game were at TCU, I would pick TCU to win. I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with Kansas. Game day's there. Sometimes we see these types of games where game day will show up somewhere that they rarely go, and kind of like App State a couple weeks ago, they'll win on some crazy miracle. So that's what I'm going to bet on. I'm going to say Kansas wins the game outright. All right, next game, the Red River Shootout, a battle of unranked teams.
That's so crazy.
Who would have thought that at the beginning of the year?
Nobody. I'd say both teams would have been ranked.
That Texas and Oklahoma both are unranked. This game comes on ABC at noon. Texas is favored by 7 points right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Texas. Oklahoma looked terrible last week, so I'll take Texas to win. Texas to cover.
I'm going Texas. I would not touch this line because it is a rivalry game. And it feels like this game's always close, no matter
this is kind of like
no matter which team is better in a given year. It seems like this game's always close.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Tennessee, Florida. You don't want to touch the spread on that game.
Yeah. Duke at Georgia Tech is our next game. This is a sneaky game. There's probably some people right now, why are you talking about Duke and Georgia Tech? Well, Georgia Tech's coming off a big win over Pitt last week. Georgia Tech beat Pitt, and Duke only has one loss on the year. They lost to Kansas. Let's see what FPI says about this game. FPI likes Duke 60% to 40%.
Yep.
I'm going to go with... You want to pick first?
I'll pick first.
Okay.
So I think the spread being only 3 here in favor of Duke is kind of crazy. I think the Blue Devils are going to end up winning this game, and I'm going to take the Blue Devils to cover, despite Georgia Tech coming off of a big win.
I'm going to pick Duke to win, but I'm not nearly as confident as you are, just because I saw Georgia Tech with an interim coach last week beat Pitt. And I think, the reason I'm not confident in my Duke pick is because I could see a scenario where, they're rallying behind this guy and they win again this week.
Yeah, some teams play better for interims.
Yeah, but I'm still going to pick Duke. Next game is Washington at Arizona State. Let me find this one real quick. Arizona State obviously has an interim coach now too, as Herm Edwards was fired
finally
a couple of weeks ago. FPI likes Washington
75 to 25.
Yeah, and the spread on this game is Washington minus 14.
Yeah, I'll start us off. I think Washington's got a really good football team this year. Only one loss. Arizona State 1-4. Herm Edwards is gone, but they're still a Herm Edwards team. So Washington's going to win this game, and Washington is going to cover.
I agree. I couldn't say it any better. That's exactly what I think about this game. Next game, Iowa at Illinois. This should be a very low-scoring game. Illinois is favored by 3.5 points. This game comes on Big Ten Network at 7:30. Illinois beat Wisconsin 38-10 last week. Ended up costing Paul Chryst his job. Will the over hit here? The over-under is 35.5. Will it hit?
No, I think I would probably bet the under on this one. This is going to be
and that's crazy to say.
Yeah.
Bet the under on a
in
35.
In today's college football, an over-under that low is crazy. But, no, I would take the under in this game. I'll go ahead and pick this game. I'm going to go Iowa to win this game. I get that Illinois played Wisconsin really well, which is a pretty good football team. But Iowa played Michigan pretty tight last week, and I think they're going to build on that, and they're going to end up pulling off the upset. Excuse me.
I've got Iowa as well. So I've got Iowa plus 3.5, and I've got Iowa outright. I have a hard time believing Illinois is going to be 5-1.
No, that doesn't sound right, does
That
it?
it literally doesn't sound right. Iowa 4-2 sounds a lot better than Iowa 3-3 and Illinois 5-1. So I'm going to go with the underdog Iowa. Our next game. This is a Big 12 matchup. Kansas State at Iowa State. This game comes on ESPNU at 7:30. Kansas State is ranked 20th. Iowa State is unranked. Kansas State favored by 2 points. I'll start us off. I'm going to go with Kansas State here on the road. Iowa State's kind of let me down this year, so I'm going Kansas State.
Yeah, Iowa State just lost to Kansas, and now they're going to lose to Kansas's little brother, Iowa State or Kansas State.
Kansas's little brother,
Yep.
Kansas State.
This year. Tables have turned this year.
All right, well, let's go out west for this next game. This is a neutral site game. It's being played in Allegiant Stadium in Nevada. This is BYU and Notre Dame. BYU ranked 16th, and they're playing at a neutral site against unranked Notre Dame. And Carter, the spread is Notre Dame by 3.5. I don't understand this.
No, I don't either. BYU has looked pretty good this year. Notre Dame is still fighting their demons. So I'm going to take BYU to win this game, and obviously BYU outright.
I'm doing the same. I just don't understand this line.
It's the big ND on their helmet.
It's the brand, I guess.
Yeah. Or not on their helmet, but on their jersey.
But BYU is just. I think BYU is a top 15 team. Like I said earlier, I've got them ranked in my top 15. I think they're pretty good. I've got Notre Dame ranked, I think, 24th. So this should be a good game. Don't get me wrong. It should be a good game, but I've got BYU winning this thing. Next game, Florida State at NC State. NC State is coming off a loss to Clemson. They're favored by 3.5 points, though, in this game at home. And Florida State lost to Wake Forest. So both of these teams are coming off a loss. Both are 4-1 on the year. I'm going to go with. I'm honestly not too sure because, I could see NC State having a hangover effect from last week and coming out and playing sloppy and getting beat at home. But I'm going to go with NC State just because I think it is more likely that they come out and they play mad and they beat Florida State by probably 1 or 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. NC State, I just personally think, is a better team than Florida State. So I'm going to have NC State win, NC State cover.
All right, and then our second to last game technically that we're picking is Oregon at Arizona. This game comes on at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, Saturday night. Oregon is favored by 13 points, and the over-under on this game is 70.5. So they're expecting a high-scoring affair between these two.
Yeah, really high scoring. They're not expecting a whole lot of defense at all.
Carter, who are you taking in this one?
So the spread is Oregon minus 13. I don't think I necessarily agree with that spread. I'm going to have Arizona plus 13 here, but I think Oregon is going to end up winning the game.
I'm going to go with Oregon, but I will take Arizona plus 13. So I think Arizona will keep it close. And now it is time for one of our favorite segments that we do, the Toilet Bowl. This week's Toilet Bowl is not even going to occur on Saturday. It's going to occur on Friday night, and it's going to come on at 10:30 on Fox Sports 1. So if you don't have anything to do after y'all go out and watch your local high school football game on Friday night, just come home, turn on Fox Sports 1, and watch this game right here. Colorado State, winless Colorado State, faces 2-3 Nevada. The over-under on this game is 44 points, and Nevada is favored by 3.5 points. Like I said, Carter, who wouldn't want to watch this game?
Oh, I know. Probably anyone who has a dog or a wife or friends, I'd say they'd probably want to watch any other game than this. Or maybe if you're an alumni, you might want to watch this game. I'm going to go with the underdog here. I think Colorado State is going to get their first win of the season. At least I hope, because being 0-4 is kind of sad. So we're going to go Colorado State here.
I am going with Nevada. I'm going to go with the favorite, not because I have some special knowledge about these teams.
We know absolutely nothing about either of these programs.
I couldn't name a single player on either of these rosters, and to be honest, I don't think I can name the head coaches of these two teams. Colorado State, maybe Steve Adazio. I don't even know that. I definitely don't know Nevada's head coach. So I'm going to take Nevada just because you took Colorado State. So now let's do our locks of the week real quick. Locks of the week, I have two as always. I'm going to do two spreads this week. UConn beat Fresno State last week, and I think they are going to cover this week against FIU. FIU got destroyed, absolutely destroyed by Western Kentucky last week. So I'm going to take UConn to cover versus FIU. Cover the -5. So UConn's favored by 5 in that game. I think they win by more than 5 points. Another game I'm looking at. Virginia Tech at Pitt. Pittsburgh's favored by 14.5. I like this number a lot because even if Pitt wins by 14 and you take Virginia Tech plus 14.5, you still get it. I would take Virginia Tech plus 14.5 against Pitt this week. So those are my two locks of the week. And again, little disclaimer. These are not guaranteed picks. You are betting with your own money, not ours. You're not betting with anyone else's either. You're betting with your money. And if you decide to bet one of these quote-unquote locks of the week, you're doing it at your own risk.
Yeah. Okay. So I actually mentioned my first lock earlier. I think it's going to be Auburn plus 30 against Georgia this week. I feel like that spread is way too high. And then my second lock, Utah UCLA. I'm going to pick Utah to cover. Utah, I just feel like has a few more. I mean, UCLA has a win against a ranked Washington team, but in general, everyone else they've played. I mean, Colorado, not good at all. USA's not good. Alabama State is bad. Bowling Green is bad. Utah, however, lost against Florida, should have won that game. They were ranked. And then they beat Oregon State, who played USC very close the previous week. So I'm going to have Utah covering the spread, which is at 4.5.
All right, so there's our locks of the week and our picks for this week. We will take a quick break, and we'll be back with our final segment, the LSU preview. You're listening to the Verts podcast. Welcome back to the Verts podcast. It's time for the final segment, Tennessee versus LSU preview. Obviously, Tennessee is coming off a bye. Their last game that they played was against Florida. Tennessee's undefeated going into this game. LSU's only loss on the year was week 1 to Florida State by 1 point. So, and both of these teams, Carter, are now ranked in the top 25.
Yep, so Tennessee's got a chance for a third ranked opponent win on the season.
Yeah.
Which would be really big for the program, even though, LSU's just 25. It'd be really big. But me and you discussed this. This game kind of feels like a trap game.
Yes, I think a lot of Tennessee fans are overlooking this game. LSU is not a bad team. I know they're not as good as they normally are, and this is Brian Kelly's first year, but LSU's still got a pretty good team, and they could beat Tennessee this Saturday.
Yep.
Now, do I think that Tennessee is going to struggle offensively against LSU's defense? No. I actually think that Tennessee matches up well against LSU because LSU's defensive backs are kind of like ours. They're the weak link of their defense.
Yeah, and if Auburn had a competent quarterback under center, they probably would have won that game with ease.
Yeah. LSU secondary is not that great, so I do like that matchup for Tennessee. And a big thing we'll have to watch, and obviously we won't know this till Saturday probably, Cedric Tillman. Will he be able to go? To be honest, if he is limited in practice this week, and if he's not going to be 100% for that game,
he doesn't need to suit up.
That's my opinion. I don't think Heupel and them should
I don't think
force him back that quick.
No, and I don't think he will. I think Heupel's the type of guy, if he's not 100%, and we have depth behind Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman is a big loss, don't get me wrong, but we have enough depth behind to make up for it. Brim McCoy had a great game against Florida 2 weeks ago. So if he can step it up again without Cedric Tillman, we'll be okay.
And this kickoff time, it's kicking off at 11 a.m. Central Time, which is Baton Rouge time.
Cajuns better just not sleep.
LSU fans were furious when they announced the time for this game because they've been wanting this to be a night game, and obviously it didn't happen because CBS chose to put Alabama and A&M on at that 8 o'clock time, and then ESPN got the second pick, the noon slot, and they picked LSU and Tennessee. So, I would much rather play at LSU at noon as opposed to at night.
No, that's a no-brainer as a Tennessee fan. You don't want to be in Baton Rouge. You don't want to be in Death Valley at night.
And Tennessee's wearing the smoky gray uniforms that got announced, which I thought was interesting. But after what I had heard about Tennessee moving away from doing alternates in the big games like Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, that made sense to me because I was looking at the schedule and I was like, really, that's the only time that they could wear the smoky grays because they've already said they're wearing the black jerseys later this year too, which I think will be against Kentucky and not Missouri.
Kentucky.
It's definitely not going to be against Alabama next week.
Night game against Kentucky and the dark mode unis would be amazing.
Yeah, and I don't know. Just real quick, I'm not trying to get off topic here, but I don't even know. I can't even remember when the last time we played Kentucky in Neyland that night was. I think it's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Yeah. But yeah, Tennessee going on the road and playing LSU. Tennessee's favored by 3 points, but that FPI that I see you have pulled up actually favors LSU 58% to 42%.
And that's because it's an away game. If this game's in Neyland,
yes, it always favors the home team a lot. FPI does. It gave us an 80% chance to win it against Florida.
Something like that. It was something high.
Yeah.
Really high.
So let's talk about matchups in this game. I want to talk about LSU's offense first. So LSU, assuming Jaden Daniels is available, assuming he's ready to go, which I've not heard anything that suggests that he's going to be out for this game, even though he was injured against Auburn. Jaden Daniels can run the ball. He's a pretty good quarterback. He's a transfer from Arizona State. He's pretty good. He can move, and that concerns me because Tennessee has struggled against running quarterbacks for a while. Now, I will say this: the only dual threat quarterback they faced all year so far has been Anthony Richardson.
And they did a pretty good job of locking him up.
Yes, but he still threw all over us.
Yes.
But they did contain him. It wasn't like Matt Corral last year where he ran for 8,000 yards on us. So
Tennessee still wins the quarterback matchup here, though.
oh yeah,
It's no contest. Hendon Hooker is a much better passer than Jaden Daniels. And
yes,
arguably, I think he's just as athletic running the ball.
I would agree.
So,
but like I said, I can see where Jaden Daniels could give our defense fits.
oh
And
yes,
I think this will be a high scoring game because, like I said, LSU's defensive backs aren't very good. Our secondary's not really that good. So this has, I think, 45-42, 38-31 written all over it. Tennessee, offensively, this is what I would like to see in this game is I would like to see Tennessee find a way to run the ball against LSU because we've not ran it very well in any of the first 4 games, I don't feel like. And just looking back at last year, our run game was way more effective last year, and it set up big play opportunities down the field all season long.
yeah.
So,
Our run game has struggled compared to last year a little bit, but I will say I think the passing game has made up for it so far this year. We've passed the ball slightly better, I think, than we did last year. Hendon Hooker has been efficient as always.
yeah, and I mean Tennessee's pass game. I'm not worried about Tennessee's pass game going into this game.
No, I mean we went through Florida's defense like butter.
Yeah, and I think Pitt's defense Pitt's defense is better than LSU's.
Pitt's defense is the best defense we've played all year.
Yeah, and we beat Pitt, so who's to say we can't beat LSU?
Yeah.
Are we ready to do picks?
I do want to add on the defensive side before we get to picks, Tyler. Secondary is going to have to step it up in this game. We're going to have to definitely play a lot better than we did against Anthony Richardson and the Gators.
Yeah, and going back to that Pitt game again, we did not play well in the secondary against Pitt either. Really, I mean, our front 7 played really, really good,
which made our secondary look better.
Yeah, but the secondary didn't play all that great against Pitt,
and we've got a big loss
with Warren Burrell out.
Warren Burrell's out for the season.
Mm-hmm. That's not good because now I'm ready for Brandon Turnage to step up. I don't know what happened to him over the offseason, but
is D. Williams healthy?
I think they said that he is. I think they said he's ready to go. So
it'd be nice to see him on the field.
He'll play some this week, I bet. All right. Let's go ahead and do our picks, Carter. I'll let you go first.
All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, this game really feels like a trap game for Tennessee. It does. Brian Kelly, he says things on social media that the players obviously see that really gets under their skin a little bit. Makes them think, oh, we're gonna go out there and nail them, and then they come out and do something completely different from what he said because he's just that kind of guy. He's a traveling snake oil salesman with some of the stuff he says and some of the stuff he does. But despite that, I'm still going to pick Tennessee to win this game. I think Tennessee is going to avoid the trap. And I think Tennessee is going to end up covering. I can see us winning by 6 to 7 points, a touchdown to 2 field goals.
I'm going to be honest. I don't see a scenario where this game is not a tight game, where it's not close. And I said this before the season even started. I said, looking at this game, I think these teams are fairly even, especially considering that the game is in Baton Rouge. If it were in Knoxville, I might think a little differently about this game, but being in Baton Rouge, I think these teams are going to put on a heck of a show Saturday, and I think this is going to be, regardless of what happens, I think this will be one of the best games that people can watch on Saturday. With that being said, I don't really like the matchup here against LSU's offense, and then our offense versus LSU's defense. I do like that matchup. I really like that matchup, but I think Tennessee is due a loss, and so I'm going to go with LSU to upset Tennessee, and hopefully Tennessee is able to bounce back and beat Alabama the next week.
Well, we all hope you're wrong. That's for sure.
Well, I would trade a loss to LSU for a win against Alabama.
I'd much rather just win both.
It's
That's not going to happen, but I'd much rather.
I would
just win
rather
both.
beat Alabama than beat LSU. I would take.
You take a win against Alabama over LSU any day of the week.
Yes. Not saying that I'm necessarily picking Tennessee to beat Alabama yet. That's still to be determined. But, I think LSU. Now, my confidence in that pick is not very high, I'm going to be honest. But I just look at the rest of our schedule, and I'm like, who are we going to lose to? I think this is a very losable game for Tennessee, so I'm going to pick the Tigers to win. All right, so that's going to do it for episode 3 of the Verts podcast, Carter. Anything you want to add before we sign off here?
Either way, like you said, this is going to be a really good game to watch, so make sure you tune in. We got a really good week of college football coming up, that's for sure.
Yep. All right, I want to thank everyone for listening to this podcast, and we'll see you next week.